In this topic, we take a look at us becoming the authors. So when we write for a specific audience, we need to take all the items that we've learned throughout this entire cluster into consideration so that we write for that specific audience. Let's take a look at the factors that we take into consideration when writing. So the purpose would be, why am I writing? The audience, who am I writing to? And the tone, which is dictated by the words that we use. The content, what am I writing about? To express a message in writing, it is important to write with the audience in mind. Don't think about being misunderstood, rather about, will the audience understand? Let's pay attention to the following: comprehension, the assembly of your sentences and paragraphs, and then the summarizing of the content and the message that you want to get across. All the aspects that make up grammar, like sentence structures, punctuation used, and the words used, all together to express our message in writing. Remember that sentences have syntax and consist of a subject and an object. Additionally, an adjective that describes what the noun is doing. So if we take a look at the example where we know a noun is a person, animal, place, or thing, and a verb tells you about the action of the noun, an adjective describes the noun, right? Telling us about the color, the shape, the taste, the smell, whatever the case may be. An adverb adds definition to the verb. So if we go and have a look at the example at the bottom, the man, which is the noun, ate, which is the verb, because what did he do? He was eating. All right. The adjective is juicy because we're adding to the noun. All right. We're saying that or we're adding to the adverb because we're saying that the whatever he ate was really juicy. Okay, and then we get to the adverb, which is the pizza. So we're saying the man ate juicy pizza. So we're collaborating all those ideas together and structures together to form the sentence. Now it's important to take a look at that when analyzing written content. Types of sentences include simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences. And once sentences are made up, they're made up of parts to include a clause. Now, when we talk about clauses, different types of sentences will also have different amounts of clauses. If we look at simple sentences, they only have one clause. The example, it says the budget was overspent. So there's only one clause in that simple sentence, straightforward and to the point. Then we get compound sentences, which have two or more clauses and are joined together by words like and, but, or, nor, so, then, yet, those types of words. So the example, the budget was overspent and audited. All right. Then we get complex sentences, which is made up of one main clause, so one main idea, and one adverbial clause. In other words, a doing word to add to the main clause. Let's take a look at the example. Budgets were overspent despite the request to decrease expenditure. So our adverbial clause there will be despite the request. Okay, so despite will be the adverbial clause because we're adding to the actual main clause by saying despite. All right. Authors would use short sentences to increase tension and maintain interest. Long sentences are tiring and interest will be lost during reading. Here are some examples of adverbial clauses. Contrast clauses, when we are creating a contrast in a sentence, we can look at common conjunctions like although, though, even though, or while. If we're looking at reason clauses, in other words, giving a reason why something happened, then we'll look at conjunctions like because, since. So the accident happened because he wasn't driving safely. Then we look at place clauses, where, wherever, everywhere. Purpose clauses, so that, so, because, and want together. Then we look at result clauses, which is so that, so, whatever, that, and then such that. Okay, so If in an example of a result clause, we look at something like the results of the race were held back so that all the participants could make sure that their results were indeed not fraudulent, or whatever the case may be. All right, time clauses, we'll use words like when, before, after, since, while, and so forth. All right, you can have a look at them there. Then we look at conditional clauses: if, unless, provided that, as long as. So we could say that you can overspend on the budget provided that you make sure that you don't overspend next month. Okay, so in terms of those, make sure you know as many words as possible. The more words you know, the bigger your vocabulary and the easier you're going to be able to write and or interpret text. Now, taking all the above into consideration, when we make up a document, we can look at the smaller elements. We break it down into those smaller elements. So we've got a whole lot of words that we've put together to form sentences. Those sentences are put together to form paragraphs. Paragraphs are generally themes of a particular topic, and all the paragraphs together form the document or the written content. In addition to sentences and putting all these sentences together to get paragraphs and paragraphs together to get the written content, we also need to understand the styles of writing and what style we will be writing in. So let's take a look at a couple of styles. We'd look at narrative style, which is telling a story without using a dialogue, commonly used in documentary filmmaking. If you look at the graphic over there, as John takes the money from George, he laughs with pleasure because George lost the bet. They both fade away, feeling happy and content. That would be a typical example of narration because you're telling the story while looking at a graphic. Discursive style means when we write about a particular topic in detail. So let's look at our topic, dogs barking. When dogs bark, they are sometimes loud and sometimes squeaky. The loudness of their bark depends on their size. So there we can see that we're talking about the dogs barking, and the topic is detailed towards the dogs barking and the sound of their bark. Then we look at reflective text, when we reflect on a memory and or an experience. Example, as I walked away, the sun setting behind me, going down faster than it had appeared that morning. Now we're reflecting on a particular memory or an experience of how we felt about something. Argumentative styles are used when expressing an opinion and giving reasons for the opinion. For example, drivers have forgotten that their vehicles have brakes. Streaming viciously through traffic from lane to lane. So I'm expressing an opinion. That's my opinion about drivers on the road today. If we look at descriptive, when we're writing descriptively, we're describing something or someone. Leaves on a tree are green during the summertime. They have a main vein running down the middle. The main vein branches to smaller veins to the sides. That would mean I'm actually describing exactly what I'm seeing. Expository styles are used when explaining how something works, generally concerned with the pattern of things. So we can look at a typical example. The organization business dealings are run systematically with strict processes in place. So I'm being very pattern orientated. I'm giving a process. I'm telling you that it's systematic. I'm saying that business is run with strict processes in place. If we look at transactional styles of writing, these are generally related to administrative documents like invoices, purchasing orders, all sorts of things like that in business. And that's a wrap for topic 5, writing for a specific audience. The main ideas are: factors of writing text includes a purpose, audience, tone, and the content. When writing, write with the audience in mind to ensure they understand rather than trying not to be misunderstood. Sentences are constructed using words, paragraphs by a number of contextual sentences, and a document a number of paragraphs. It is important to use the correct style of writing when writing for a specific audience. Always draft your writing by using a mind map or notes of the main ideas, then construct the sentences, then the paragraphs, etc.